Duck comes around. The engines were stunned after their encounter with the devious Diesel, who had oiled his way into the graces of Gordon, Henry, and James by spreading rumors about Duck the Great Western Engine, who he hated. Diesel had gotten Duck into a lot of trouble, and when the Fat Controller learned of his awful scheme, he had sent Diesel packing. Gordon, Henry, and James did their best to make it up to Duck, and soon the four were firm friends again. They didn't talk about galloping sausages, old square wheels, or rusty red scrap iron anymore, but it would be some time before they learned to trust another Diesel. "Diesels are not helpful," Gordon boomed. "They create havoc in the yard," added Henry. "And they just as soon as push you off the rails than fetch your train," James finished. Duck wasn't so sure at first, but he was impressionable, and soon the big engine's attitudes began to rub off on him. One day, Duck came to see Edward at his station. Edward was glad to see that Duck was safe after his accident at the barber shop. Duck told Edward all about Diesel and the tricks he had pulled. "I'm sorry he tormented you," Edward sympathized. "Well, it's all over now," Duck replied. "And good riddance to him. I hope the Fat Controller will be more careful about bringing Diesels to the island again." "Diesel was on trial, Duck," said Edward. "It just turned out he wasn't the right engine for the job. That doesn't mean the next Diesel will be bad." "The next Diesel?" spluttered Duck. "With all the trouble Diesel put me through, I would be perfectly content never to work with another Diesel again. And Gordon, Henry, and James agree with me. They can't be trusted." "I see," said Edward curtly. Edward was reserved around Diesels too, but he wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Later that day, Edward, Bill, and Ben were at the harbor organizing the trucks in preparation for a large shipment of China clay. It was hard work, and soon the three engines were exhausted. Lately they had each been working hard enough for three. "Phew," said Bill. "I don't know if I can pull one more wagon." "Yes," Ben sighed. "There's too much work for the three of us." "You might be right about that," said Edward. "We can't spend all day shunting trucks here when we're also needed elsewhere." Edward decided to ask the Fat Controller for more help. "I understand your feelings, Edward," said the Fat Controller, "but I'm afraid that we can't spare any other engines here on the railway." Edward was disappointed. "However," the Fat Controller continued, "there is another engine. His name is Boko. He's a new Diesel which an associate of mine would gladly allow me to trial." Edward remembered what Duck had said. "Is that wise, sir?" Edward said, and reminded him about Diesel. "I'm worried about how Gordon, Henry, James, and, well, Duck will react to a new Diesel." The Fat Controller smiled. "One of these days they're going to have to get used to Diesels, Edward. They're not all like Diesel, I promise you." This made Edward feel better, but he was still worried. Boko came the following week. Edward was astonished when he saw him. He was much bigger than Diesel, was painted green, and had a pleasant smile. "Hello," Boko called. "You must be Edward. I've heard such wonderful things about you." "I've heard good things about you too," Edward replied. He was disarmed by how kind Boko seemed. He was nothing at all like Diesel. "I'm happy to help you here on your branch line. I've had a lot of experience with trucks on my other railway. When can we get started?" "Just as soon as you like," Edward said. He was suddenly very excited to work with this new Diesel. The two spent the rest of the afternoon pushing and pulling trucks into place around Edward's station. Boko was very strong indeed, and made light work of the shunting. Edward was impressed by how well-mannered the trucks were while Boko moved about the yard. It was not long before the two had organized the trucks into neat lines. "You did a fine job," Edward said. "It would have taken me ages to sort these trucks." "My pleasure," Boko replied, smiling. "Trucks are what I do best." Later that day, a shipment of China clay was ready to be taken down the branch line to the harbor, which Boko offered to take. "I'd love to see more of the main line," he said. The route to the harbor required passing through the big station where Duck and the big engines were. This made Edward feel nervous for Boko. He decided it was best to tell him about Diesel. The big engines don't trust diesels, Edward finished. They're liable to harass you. Boko laughed. Thank you for the warning, Edward, but I'm used to the leering eyes of steam engines, Boko said. I'll handle them. Gordon, Henry, James, and Duck were resting at the harbor. They decided to doze for a while as their next trains weren't due until later. There was a cool breeze and the engines were comfortable. It's days like this that I'm glad we don't have any more diesels gallivanting around, said Gordon. Yes, agreed Duck, just the sounds of the waves and the gulls. Boko, without disturbing the engines, had slunk into the yard to set down his trucks. He spoke with the foreman and secretly arranged Gordon, Henry, James, and Duck's trains. He had such a knack with trucks that it took him almost no time at all. The station master, seeing that the trains were ready and waiting, came up to tell the engines the news. What? Already? Exclaimed Henry. Who shunted them? Did you, Duck? Asked Gordon. No, I've been right here. Did you shunt them, James? Definitely not. Suddenly, there came the sound of a diesel's horn from the other side of the yard. Boko roared into view and stopped just short of the sidings. I'm sorry to disturb your dozing, Boko said, but I just wanted to say that I hope you all have good trips this evening. You'll find your trains arranged neatly at the station. Goodbye! The engines were speechless. Duck's evening train ran through Edward's station. When he arrived, Edward was sitting in the station siding with a grin on his face. I wasn't expecting you until later, Edward said. My train... But before Duck could finish, Boko pulled into the adjacent platform. Having a good trip, Duck? Boko said warmly. Duck looked blankly at Boko, perhaps believing that the diesel he had seen earlier had been just a dream. It's nice to have a diesel like Boko that cares enough to shunt your train, Duck, Edward laughed. But of course, they can't be trusted. Right, Duck? Duck felt ashamed. I'm sorry for what I said about diesels before, he said. I was so caught up in what the big engines were saying about diesels that I didn't stop to think that you can be very useful too. It's okay, Duck. I promise that I will never treat you the way that diesel did. Duck smiled. Thank you, Boko. I hope to see you around the harbor again soon. Duck gave a polite whistle and pulled out of the station. When he got back to the sheds that night, he told the other engines about Boko and how nice he was. Gordon, Henry, and James soon agreed with Duck, and they looked forward to seeing Boko again soon.